Welcome to the all-new 4th generation Kia Rio, and you might not have guessed it's a new car actually. Now the first Kia Rio, that looked a bit, not great, and the second Rio, that also didn't look very good really. And there was a 3rd generation Rio, and that looked a bit better. It was kind of at the time when Kias were starting to become a bit more interesting, a bit more desirable. And then there's this 4th one, and it doesn't look entirely different. But truth be told, this is more than just a light refresh. Kias have come so far in just a few years that even the 3rd gen Rio that is just a few years old starts to feel old. In this car, there's more technology, the design is sharper, the quality is improved, and Kia have introduced turbocharged 3-cylinder engines for the first time. Design-wise, it's very smart. Perhaps it's a little bit ordinary, a little bit safe, but it's not offensive, it's not bad looking. I think it's actually quite a good looking little car. And it kind of brings it into line with the rest of Kia's range. Now this particular car that I'm driving is the Rio First Edition, and Kia launch First Edition cars when they launch a new car. Normally, their trim levels are 1, 2 and 3. This is the First Edition and it sits above all of those, and eventually it will become a 4. So, because it's a top spec car, it's got leather seats, it's got navigation, it's got a reversing camera, 17-inch wheels, and different lights as well. It's a very smart car, both inside and out, and you can feel the quality difference in here as well. What kind of bugs me a little bit is the fact that the top spec Rio, this First Edition, gets different rear lights to the rest of the range, and to me that seems like a bit of a silly move, because the rear lights on this car, really well designed, they look really smart. On the other cars, they look slightly old-fashioned. I don't know why you would launch a new car and not give the whole range the lights that make it look up to date. That seems slightly strange to me. Now you can get the Rio with a 1.4 litre petrol, a 1.25 litre petrol, or a 1.4 diesel, or you can have the new engine, which is a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine, and you get it with either 99 brake horsepower or 118 brake horsepower. In the First Edition, you can only get the 118 brake horsepower model, so that's what this is, 118 brake horsepower and 126 foot-pounds of torque. Now I drove both versions of this engine, both the 99 brake horsepower engine and the 118 brake horsepower engine, on the launch. And for me, the biggest difference between the two, although they are exactly the same engine, is when you get to 4,000 RPM in the lesser powered one, that it kind of drops off, so you can tell it's just engine mapping, it's just the electronics holding it back, which makes this higher powered one, to me, a lot nicer to drive. 0 to 60 takes 9.8 seconds, and the top speed is 115 miles an hour. Quick, it is not, but it's quite a nice little 3-cylinder engine. Again, I make no complaints about the fact I like 3 cylinders. This one is good fun, and you do definitely notice the difference between this and the lesser powered one. It's just, it's nice knowing that it's not being held back by electronics. Now this new car has revised suspension, revised shock absorbers, and it's got a much stiffer body as well. And you do kind of notice it. It's got a little bit of roll when you go through the corners, and when you accelerate hard over bumps, the traction control light comes on, because it really does struggle to get its power down when you go over a sharp bump. The suspension just can't deal with it. But it is a very comfortable car, it's very easy to drive, and I'm surprised how much grip it has. In the wet, you can get it to understeer, but in the dry, it's actually quite good fun. It's got plenty of grip. Kia has also made changes to the steering compared to the old car, again, so it should be better to drive and more fun to drive, and you get quite a good idea of what the tyres are doing, and as I said, you've got quite a lot of grip, so you kind of just point the front end and it goes. Gearbox. It's a 6-speed manual gearbox in this car, and you can't get a Rio First Edition with a 5-speed, but you can get the others with a 5-speed. Now the 6-speed gearbox, I think, is better, and I'm not just saying it because it's got 6 gears and 6 gears is always better than 5, because it isn't. But the 6-speed is just nicer to use. Again, back when I went on the launch, got to drive the different versions, and the 6-speed gearbox is just a nicer gearbox to use. So how much you have to pay for a new Rio? Well, base entry version is £11,995. Rio First Edition is £17,445. When it becomes the 4 in a few months' time, it will probably stay somewhere around that price mark. It's quite a lot of money, at least for this top spec car. And someone asked me, well, why would you spend that much money on a car this small? Surely that's just pointless. Why wouldn't you just buy the next car up? And I suppose it boils down to, if you want a small car but you just want all the gadgets and even just a nice material, like we've got full leather seats in here, then this does make sense. What's the point in buying a bigger car that kind of feels a bit basic when all you want size-wise is a smaller car but with stuff like leather seats, reversing camera, etc, etc.